because what is more dynamic. Yeah, the same community I'm part of, man. We are very proud, aren't you? But who cares? I'm normal.
Okay, so this video is going to be highly improvised because I am not at home, so I'm going to be making this reaction from my phone. So sorry if there's a little loss in quality, but well, the circumstances forced me to do so. And well, we're going to be refuting this video from that anime Snob, which is his series of episodic reactions of ReZero, of the first part of the second season. And well, it is trash, like all the rest of his videos in general. And I'll be linking in the description one of my other rebuttals to his other video, which I already posted in the comments, but I have a documents file in which you can read all of it. So let's start.
Story. The first episode of the second season is a nice reminder of how the show is contradicting its own premise.
First of all, there's no justification for the contradiction part, but let's analyze what he's showing on screen. Emilia never hated Subaru. The reason why they cut ties was because Subaru was constantly putting himself at risk while being near Emilia. And after cutting ties, if you have read the novel, which you probably didn't, you can see that Emilia feels a sort of repentance for having pushed Subaru away, because she did it for his sake. Otherwise, he was going to keep sacrificing himself for her. So this was never a matter of Emilia hating Subaru. And second of all, the fact that their relationship was in the past in a bad situation, and that now they made amendments and they fixed that situation, does not mean that there's no consequences. By that reasoning, we cannot say that a relationship getting worse in any anime or any novel can be considered a permanent consequence, because it can be undone in the future. So this makes no sense. And no, Return by Death is not OP. I've already talked about in the comments of my video. First of all, for it to be overpowered, it should give significantly more than it takes to be able to be used. And well, it takes literally your life to be able to use it, so I wouldn't say that there's no equivalent exchange. Also, we have a Q&A in which Tappy explains that Return by Death works the way it works because he wanted to make it so that when a life is lost, only a cost equally or greater than it can undo that consequence. Like, Subaru killing himself or Subaru dying is the only way in which he can revive people. And that was the point of the usage of Return by Death, so that only a life is worth as much as other lives in general. So he starts by not getting any of it, so we have a terrible start already.
And the idiotic anime community doesn't get it. As soon as it begins, you are reminded that despite the claims of it being a deconstruction of isekai...
First of all, the author never said it was a deconstruction. Nothing in the story says it was a deconstruction. But even if people want to say it is, because it has a lot of different elements in comparison to the other isekais, the protagonist has flaws that are addressed, has a lot of psychological realism, and also it has a lot of development of that psychology, and it goes very deep into it. Psychoterrorist, which is a psychologist, made a reaction to the entirety of ReZero, and there's a lot to analyze because Tappy put a lot of emphasis and focus on Subaru's psychology, and that's something that isekais usually don't do. Then the overpoweredness, which isn't a thing here, in comparison to other isekais, is practically non-existent when it comes to Subaru. In other isekais, the protagonist might appear to be summoned with powers that barely take any toll on them when they use it, and their challenges can be extremely easy to solve. For example, if you take Rising of the Shield Hero, and if you take the protagonist, he was never ever really close to dying or losing any of his fights or conflicts throughout the series. And if you compare it to Subaru, who constantly dies, loses, and is put against extremely unfair odds and unfair challenges that he cannot solve by brute strength, and in addition, he doesn't have much allies that can help him, or at the start in the first arcs, or there are some conflicts that do not fully allow him to use those allies as a help to solve those conflicts. So, and this literally doesn't happen in like 90% of isekai anime. If you take, for example, Mushoku Tensei, which is an anime that I like, it doesn't happen in the same way. Rudy, from the very beginning, is able to use magic to a very great extent, and the challenges he faces in the first arcs aren't that challenging at all comparing to what Subaru experiences. This does not mean that Mushoku Tensei is bad, because it isn't. In the future, he does experience a lot of challenges, and particularly when future Rudius arrives. But like, you cannot compare the level of difficulty that Subaru is put through to the level of difficulty that other isekai anime protagonists face. You cannot compare the physical realism or the depth that Tappy and the extent Tappy goes to explain the psychology of characters and their motivations and internal conflicts to other anime. And well, the level of depth in general is something that you cannot compare, especially if you have read the novel, because Tappy has a lot of side content explaining a lot of characters, developing them, giving them a certain backstory, showing them like there's 7,000 pages of side content in the light novel. So that's equivalent roughly to, like, I don't know, like it should be 3 volumes per 900 pages, So it would be like 3 times 7, 21 volumes of side content. That's a lot.
It's still a power fantasy.
How it is a power fantasy? Like this is the most brain-dead retarded take that I have ever seen being claimed regarding ReZero. There's no fantasy aspect here because you don't want to be in Subaru's situation. Nothing goes like Subaru wants it to go at first. Like everything is completely fucked up. There's no fantasy to be had here, and the only power that Subaru has is the ability to reset. It will be like, I don't know, saying that Dark Souls is a power fantasy for people because you can reset. Like the reset is not going to get you the win. You have to put in the effort to get the win. The only thing the reset is doing is making you able to retry. It is not leading you to the win that you will eventually achieve. So you cannot get all of Subaru's merit and throw it away just because he has returned by death. This is completely idiotic.
Subaru is human. He's not strong. He is a ordinary.
Yes, he's not strong. Chibi is completely right, and I don't know how Snob is going to be responding to it, but this is going to be a complete train wreck.
Human being thrown into a fantasy world.
If Subaru is not a harem lead and is instead...
Because there's no harem. Again, bear in mind we're only reviewing up till Season 2 and the start of Season 2. The only 4 people who are in love with him, 2 of them are not even potential romantic interests in the first place, because for you to have a harem, you need to have people around you, which anyone else was in your situation could engage in a relationship with, and I don't think anyone in Subaru's situation would be in a relationship with either Petra nor Satella. So that only leaves us with Rem and Emilia, 2 people. One of them that does not love him still, but is extremely affected towards him, but she doesn't understand the concept of love if you have read Arc 5 or watched Season 3. And, well, Rem loves him, but that would make a love triangle, not a harem. Like, it makes no sense to call it a harem, and he's not a harem lead in the first place. And also, none of them started liking Subaru out of nowhere. Like, the only exception to it would be Emilia, because she's kind to everyone, and while she was in the capital, she was helping random people. So, and that's the reason why she gets her insignia stolen. But that's because she's the exception, she's kind. But Rem literally kills him the first time Subaru meets her, so it makes no sense. Subaru is never treated with affection from the very start. Like, he has to, I wouldn't say the word is earn it, but he's not giving anything for free in the world of ReZero. Because I don't like to use the word earn because you don't earn affection. It implies like some people deserve and some people do not deserve affection, and that's a very toxic view of it.
A normal person. Why is he a nit and a dork? Cool, the moment he realized...
He might be a nit, but he improved significantly from that situation from Arc 1, so I wouldn't say that he's still a nit. Especially when he's going... a nit, for example, has no job and does nothing, and well, Subaru in Arc 2 literally has a job at the mansion, and he has to help clean, do the chores, and help the mates in the mansion, so he does have a job, and he's Emilia's butler, so he's not a nit by definition. He might be a dork at times, but he's also highly intelligent in many situations, like when he negotiates with Crush and with Anastasia, and when he finds that Rem was sent there by Roswell with an objective to secure the ability to negotiate with Crush, and so Subaru notices this, that he didn't notice in the previous loops, that Rem was having secret meetings with Crush, and in those meetings they were trying to make negotiations so that Crush could help the Roswell manor that was going to be attacked, and all of this was set up by Roswell so that Subaru would eventually figure it out and use all of this to his advantage to defend the mansion by himself and earn some credit. And well, that's something that he figures out. He figures out that Crush was trying to slay the white whale because of all the movement near her mansion and the fact that she was trying to purchase a lot of weapons, and he was talking with Russell, if I remember correctly. And we also have Anastasia and Priscilla, with which he tries to negotiate in one loop. That fails, but in the next loop he's able to negotiate with them. He's able to provide the specific things that Anastasia is looking for, and Russell too, which is a potential villain in the future of ReZero, but that's a separate thing. And all of these things that he does, also finding a way to learn who the killer is in the mansion and preparing himself for several days, and many other things he does completely disprove this claim that he's unintelligent. The only thing that happens to him is that he tends to not rely on his allies. In Arc 3, because he's prideful. In Arc 4, because he's afraid of them dying, just like it happened. Well, Rem didn't die, but she suffered a near-permanent loss, which is losing her memories and name. And, well, he's scared of anyone going through the same thing. So, like, he might be a dork at times, but he's not unintelligent.
As he's in a different world, he doesn't look for a way home and instead runs after...
He doesn't look for a way home First, because he's trying to escape from his home, and second of all, because people around him are constantly dying, especially people who he cares about. So for him to leave them there and to leave them to die there, it would make no sense because he loves them, he likes them. They are the people that he wants to survive, the people that he wants to laugh with, people who are his friends. So he has no reason to leave them there and let them die. It would be completely out of character considering that Suru is incredibly altruistic and wants to save everyone.
Waifus, and why are more...
You will see something in this video, which is that Snob tends to call any female in the story a waifu because women equal waifu, and I'm not going to give any arguments as to why. That's basically Snob's reasoning. Like, if he wants to reduce a certain character to just being a waifu because certain people consider that character being a waifu, despite having backstory, the development, internal conflicts, and a lot of things that add depth to this particular character, especially Rem and Emilia, which have like 300 pages novels relating their prequels, and well, if you have read Arc 4, there's a lot of internal monologues, development, and well, the author, if the author wanted just for them to be waifus, he wouldn't put even 1% of the effort he does in his writing to make sure that they are developed, so it makes no sense to call them just waifus. I'm not going to be stopping every time he calls them waifus to say that he's simply wrong and that he's trying to reduce characters because he has no arguments, because I've already done so for the sake of not repeating myself, I'm not going to do it again in the future.
Most of the girls all over him, even the extremely young.
No, not all girls are over him. Like in Arc 3, Arc 3 is a complete counterexample to what you're saying. Every single royal candidate is against him at the very start. There's not a single person among royal candidates, aside from Emilia, that initially loves him at all. Even with his other romantic interests, none of them love him from the very start. And the only other people aside from Rem and Emilia that love him in season 1 and 2 is Petra, which is a 14-year-old. And he's basically treating her as a girl with her delusions. So he's not taking her seriously at all, nor would potentially in the future, while she's still a child, take her seriously. So,
Is that what a normal person is like in the minds of delusional otaku?
no, people say that Suru is normal because when he's teleported there, he's flawed. He tries to escape from his problems. He didn't have a job. He tried to consistently run away from things, and in general, he was a flawed character with a lot of human reactions to the experiences that he was going through. The first time he dies, he gets partial amnesia due to what happened, which shows that he was extremely shocked by what had happened. Then he suffers from every death, shows suffering, how that affects his character, how it makes him take rash decisions. Like, the psychological impact his deaths have on his character is there always. And that psychological impact he's suffering, his internal conflicts, are what make him, in the mind of many people, realistic. And the fact that he was completely unprepared for any of the challenges that he's facing in those first arcs is what make people say that he was just a normal person, because he was a teenager. He had no idea what he was delving into. Like, that's why people say that he's normal, because from his starting point, he was a person with not that much experience. He was someone that wasn't gifted in many things. Like, he wasn't gifted when it comes to strength. He wasn't gifted when it comes to intelligence. Most of the things he has, he was average in. The only thing that he's not average in is in his ability to never give up. So, you've resolved. And he didn't have a job. He was subpar at school. All of those things, when he gets teleported, don't disappear out of nowhere, and is the basis that people use to declare him as, initially, a normal person. Even if he has a big role in the world of ReZero, and many things are related to him, even if he was teleported to achieve a great goal or something, that doesn't change the fact that initially he was just a teenager showing human reactions to what is basically absolute hell for him. So that's what people use to claim that he's a normal person.
Subaru, he's experienced failure many times, yes, but he's always been able to correct it. Obviously, other characters, they don't have that luxury of fixing things.
And don't get me started on the double standards of the return by death bullshit. If Subaru is not OP, then why does he have such an OP power that nobody can
Being in the fucking question, if Subaru is not OP, why is he OP? Like, you cannot be any more brain-dead, Snob. You're just extremely retarded.
Fixing things.
And don't get me started on the double standards of the return by death bullshit. If Subaru is not OP, then why does he have such an OP power that nobody can counter?
He does.
Except many people have countered throughout the story. Garfield almost makes him not be able to reset, for example, by kidnapping him and keeping him in the other building annexed to the sanctuary, to the witch's tomb. Then we also have Albert, we have Al, we have him being imbolike in general, that makes his loops extremely short and makes any potential death permanent, like it happens with a certain character whose name I'm not going to mention. And like, there's a lot of ways to counter Subaru's ability. There's a whole arc in which Subaru's ability is countered by Aldebaran, but I'm not going to mention how. So this is complete nonsense. Like, just because it was not shown in those first seasons, which only cover 4 arcs of a 12 arcs story, it makes no sense to criticize it for not having stakes when all of those things are possible and happen in the novel. And well, in the anime in question, we have in arc 4 we have Subaru losing Rem for like 2-3 arcs in total. It happens in arc 3, not in arc 4, and that consequence makes him go to the Pleiades Watchtower. And during all the trials of the Pleiades Watchtower, he experiences a very hard consequence that would have ended up in an if route if things went differently. So Rem disappearing made him have the potential to face a permanent consequence, as Gluttony Eve shows that he was able to not experience thanks to the changing circumstances in comparison to Gluttony Eve. But basically what happens is that Rem is lost in arc 3. That is a form of consequence. Not all consequences have to be permanent. In basically all series, the main consequences that happen, which are not people dying, can mostly be undone. So if that was the case, then in most rom-coms or other animes, there's no stakes because there's no people dying, so it makes completely no sense. Consequences do not have to be permanent. And in this case, the consequence that occurred opened the door for permanent consequences for Subaru, which happened in arc 6, when a certain effect that cannot be undone for Subaru happens, and all of this because he wanted to go to the Pleiades Watchtower to get back Rem's memories and name. So it was a direct result of Rem losing her name and memories. And also in arc 4, Rem losing her name and memories impacts Subaru because it makes him make extremely rash decisions, start to value his life less, and he values his life less because Rem is not there to be able to make him cope with his trauma, and also because he's afraid that other people will experience the same as Rem, so he thinks that he has to die as soon as possible in all loops when shit goes bad, so that other people do not die. And well, it has consequences in arc 4 that potentially can lead him through another if route, which is the greed if route. So what we have here is that Rem being lost almost makes Subaru goes through two separate if routes, and which would have been a complete disaster if they happened in the canon timeline. The fact that those two things would have happened, and we have a narrative of those things happening, show that there are stakes, because stakes refer to the ability to suffer loss, even if the protagonist never dies in the entirety of the novel, and that happens with many novels and many stories and many animes. That does not mean that there are no stakes for the protagonist. It's just because the reader or the person watching the anime in question do not know what is going to happen to the protagonist while they are reading it. Just because after reading it, it turns out that nothing happened to the protagonist, it doesn't mean that there are no stakes, because stakes are the possibility of loss. And greed if, and also Gluttony if, which are divergences from the main route that occurred mainly, or well, partially because Rem was gone in arc 4, and mainly because Rem was gone in arc 6, show that there are permanent consequences that can occur at any time and make everything go south. And with Rem, well, by itself, it also shows that Subaru cannot completely rely on Return by Death, because if he does, then there's the possibility of people losing due to the checkpoint being updated. So that also adds stakes in the story, because Subaru, in case he, for some reason, he's stopped from dying, or he cannot die in a certain loop in which people have been lost, those losses can become permanent. So that also adds more stakes to the story. Those three things add stakes to the story. So that would be my point here. So to say that there are no stakes, even with Return by Death, is just complete stupidity. And that there's no possibility of loss, which was Snob's point here, because he says that RBD cannot be countered by anything, which is completely false. And well, we have also the material from the novel, from arc 7, 8, and 9, in which Return by Death gets, and arc 6 too, in which Return by Death gets countered quite a lot during those arcs, so
Want to die, even though he knows he comes back, he doesn't want to die.
And if pain is a lot worse than death, which is why he's not using it actively for resetting the plot every time he messes up, then why is he willingly ending himself?
Because we have only two instances in regards to Season 1 and Season 2. In Season 1, he kills himself because he gains the resolve to be able to survive that pain in order to make Rem and Ram survive. Well, Ram was already alive, but Rem was already gone in the loop in which he commits suicide. And that doesn't mean he didn't experience pain, he experienced excruciating pain. But the alternative was to give up all his relationships and for Rem, a person who he cherished, to die. And he didn't want that to happen. So he has to just tolerate the pain and kill himself in that loop to be able to save the twins. but in general, he doesn't want to spam RVD because it hurts. Only when he's pushed to do so, which means when people are dying and those people are some people he cares about, he has to use RVD and he has to gain the resolve to be able to survive that pain and return back time. Because I don't know if Snob forgot this, but Subaru was in that cliff before committing suicide for several hours, so it was not an easy decision to take. And in Arc 4 at the start, when Rem is lost, when Subaru starts killing himself trying to get her back, he's doing so because he completely emotionally depended on Rem up to that point in time, so her loss completely impacted him and made him take such terrible decisions as trying to constantly kill himself, and he didn't do so only one time in Arc 4, because if you read the novels you'll see that he does so multiple times, and that is an emotional response to the loss, which is extremely self-destructive, and that's a form of character regression that he suffers in that point in time, because the person that helps him cope is gone. It's not permanently gone, but in this situation, she's gone, and that makes him take these incredibly irrational decisions and destruct himself in one way as a form of punishment for not being able to save Rem, and also because he's trying to cope with it and believes that if he keeps doing it, Rem is going to come back. That makes him extremely human because he's severely not just affected by his emotions, but severely affected by his emotions. So that's what kind of humanizes Subaru in that point in time. But well, the point here is that when shit goes bad, Subaru can suicide himself to undo that shit. But the main point here that Chibi is making is that Subaru, even when shit is not actively going bad, is not abusing that power because it hurts and it makes him go through excruciating pain, that it takes him a lot of resolve to be able to survive, and that emotionally and psychologically affects him a lot. So he's not, as Chibi said, constantly killing himself. Only when shit goes extremely bad, he is killing himself. That's the point here.
Subaru's back in it again. He's literally suffering and there's nothing he can do about it.
The big fuss everybody was yapping about during the first season was how painful it is every time he dies, and therefore he does his best not to die. And here he is abusing that power by...
Yes, because he has become completely self-destructive at the start of Season 2, because Rem was gone. That was the person that helped him emotionally cope with what he was experiencing. So the moment he experiences that extreme grief, that makes him, as a result, try to kill himself over and over again to try to get her back. That is a completely emotional reaction that he has to Rem's coma. And because of it, this does not mean that he's not being affected by the pain, because him killing himself over and over again is a direct result of the pain that he's experiencing that is making him take those completely emotional and irrational decisions here. So, and literally after doing all of that, he sits in a chair in front of Rem, who is in a coma, and starts crying and crumbling apart in front of Emilia, who has to emotionally comfort him, just as he did in the previous arc. So it's not as if he's unaffected by it. That's completely wrong. Like the scene that he's showing right now on the screen is showing that he's affected. So this is complete nonsense. Keep going with this video and let's get through it, and let's stop yapping with every point, because otherwise this video is going to be like 3 or 4 hours long, and I don't want that to happen.
Himself, so he will not have to suffer through the negative consequences.
Except he's actively suffering by killing himself and literally crumbles apart after that happens. So like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, seriously, what the fuck are you talking about? Him killing himself is an extremely self-destructive attitude that he has here, because Rem was gone, and his ability to emotionally cope with the circumstances is gone. So that makes him take these irrational decisions and emotional decisions. So, and after that, he starts crying and stressing over what had happened, so he's not experiencing the negative consequences. And in the first place, those negative consequences weren't undone by him dying. So, what the fuck is he talking about? Seriously, what even is his point?
It's the definition of a cop-out.
I think many are going to be absolutely shocked to find out that Subaru can't fix everything. There is actually things that he cannot fix.
And then it's all that bullshit about his power not being a panacea to every problem because he cannot control the save point. He cannot reset everything that went wrong, such as being an asshole to Emilia or...
Which he didn't fix by Return by Death. He had to fix it by solving the conflict in the mansion and also apologizing to Emilia and growing as a person, so it wasn't Return by Death's doing, because he didn't undo that circumstance by Return by Death.
Preventing Rem from getting magically forgotten. If that is true, then why has Emilia already forgiven him by abuse?
Because Emilia didn't hate him in the first place. We have already talked about this. Emilia didn't hate him. The only reason why she decides to stop cutting ties with him and go back with him was, first, because she felt repentance regarding the decision that she had taken, because she felt bad about trying to separate Subaru from her, and also because Emilia herself didn't hate him at all in the first place. Subaru, after going through Arc 3, grows as a person, asks for forgiveness from Emilia, and is able to show his growth by literally solving all of those things that in any other circumstances by any other person they would be impossible to solve. And he does that through sheer effort. This is not Return by Death's doing. Return by Death allows him to retry, but it doesn't guarantee a good outcome. Just like it happens with literally all the if routes, in which he still has Return by Death, but shit goes south. So, again, false, wrong. I don't know how to say it. Return by Death didn't undo this. It was Subaru's own efforts that did. And all relationship issues and all issues regarding you having a problem or a fight with another person are things that are potentially fixable. So these consequences, which are called consequences in every other story and are consequences in this story because they weren't undone by Return by Death here, cannot be just brushed away like Snob is doing, because they weren't undone. They didn't disappear, and they are still consequences.
The variability that is not supposed to be a cop-out. He defeated that whale monster by resetting his progress until he did it right and impressed her.
Yes, he used Return by Death to fix the conflict, but Return by Death didn't make him grow as a person so that Emilia would accept him again and decided not to cut ties with him at the end of Arc 3. That was Subaru's own efforts. The consequence that was the relationship getting worse because of Subaru's self-sacrifice and pride, and those two things, the self-sacrifice and pride being fixed, did not happen by Return by Death. They happened by Subaru changing as a person. So, and the consequences themselves, which means the relationship getting bad, wasn't undone by Return by Death, just because he defeated the whale by Return by Death and he fixed the trouble in the mansion by defeating the witch cult with Return by Death, does not mean that his growth as a person was a result of Return by Death, because it wasn't. Return by Death, if anything, makes him be exposed to significantly more trauma than he would normally if he didn't have it. Well, because he would be dead, he wouldn't be experiencing hell over and over again. So no, those consequences didn't disappear by Return by Death, and he had to fix them by continuously trying to work towards that goal of fixing them. The fact that he had to do all of that completely disproves the supposed claim that those are not real consequences, because if you have to work towards your goal of fixing them, they are.
That he was an MC that deserved everything, but in reality he didn't, and he's kind of had a huge wake-up call.
So much for not being able to rely on that and having to face the consequences of his actions. You can bet your sweet ass the same thing will happen with Rem. He will keep ending himself until he has a perfect playthrough.
Yeah, the perfect playthrough almost makes him go through two if routes separately in Arc 4 and Arc 6. Arc 6, which was a result of Rem getting in a coma. So I wouldn't really claim that. And even after Arc 6, he doesn't get Rem's memories and name back. He doesn't get any of the two things back. Rem wakes up with no name and no memories. People don't remember her, and she doesn't remember shit about what had happened. And throughout Arc 7 and 8, that makes Rem become an active detriment towards Subaru, because she's extremely hostile towards Subaru, and that makes him first be extremely psychologically affected by it, because the Rem he loves is extremely hostile to him now, and also it works as an active detriment to solving many problems, because memoryless Rem is a detriment in general for Arc 7 and Arc 8. And even in Arc 9, in which Rem does get back her memories and name, that is undone. So, I don't know, if you have to take 4 or 5 fucking arcs for Rem to get back her memories, I wouldn't say that that is not a consequence. Like, it's complete nonsense to call it a consequence when it takes, like, literally a third of the story for you to get something back in question. Like, it would undo the stakes of practically every story that has consequences that are lasting for a lot of arcs, which is complete nonsense.
How to return her memories. There is no tension, nothing is at stake, there is no...
Well, that's completely false. I already talked about this a lot in this video, but, and the many ways in which Return by Death can be outsmarted, but you can read my document in the description. That is the response to the previous video that Snob made, in which I talked about tension, and how this claim that Return by Death eliminates all tension is wrong. You also have a Saratha's video about stakes in ReZero, which disproves all of these claims, which I'll try to link in the description too. Or well, in the comments. I don't know if I can link it in the description or in the comments.
I'm pressure, it's all bullshit.
ReZero has officially returned. It's been years, at long last. Season 2 is here.
And the thing that pisses me off the most is how nobody gets what I describe above.
Because you're wrong.
The anime community is just happy to get another season.
And not really, you are only a doomer that only likes retro slap. It's not the fault of the anime community here.
The definition of consume product and be excited for...
The people who keep repeating this shit try to think of themselves as highly intellectual people that only consume good quality stuff, but then they go and consume shit like Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Like, I cannot take you seriously, Snob. Like, you are a complete poser of the ideology that you are trying to portray. And it is completely fake, because you take good anime and try to slander them, also with AI reviews and edited reviews, positive reviews that you present in your videos, to try to break them down, because you already have a bias that you are trying to confirm. It's not like an intellectual thing is going on here. You're completely dishonest, intellectually speaking.
More products.
I'm so happy I could sit down and talk about this fantastic story because it's just like, it's been too long. Fantastic story.
You believe the show needed more maids serving the supposed normal MC?
Frederica is not in love with Subaru. Like, let's start with that. She's just a maid, and she's related to Garfield. That's the reason she was introduced there. And she had been working for Roswell's Mansion for a lot of time ago, and she was mentioned in the previous seasons, and even shown in one flashback. So she didn't appear out of nowhere, and her purpose is not just to be a maid that people like, because she's actively developed in regards to her conflict, with Garfield, what happened in their past, why they are separated, why their relationship is eventually fixed in the time skip between Arc 4 and Arc 5, which isn't animated. And like all of that, giving depth to something that is just supposed to be a waifu or an appeal to otakus or something like that, which isn't even true, because Tape isn't writing this story for other people. Even if two people were reading his story, he would still write it the same way, and he has taken a lot of decisions that go against what the majority wants. But as I was saying, he wouldn't have given any depth to any of these characters if he just wanted them to be an appeal for otakus or something like that, which he does. He writes like extensively about Frederica and what her conflicts are, and extensively means several hundreds of pages in the novel. So, and in the anime we don't have that much depth, but in the second part of the second season we do have some depth explored. The anime cuts a lot of stuff of Arc 4, but like saying that they are just waifus when they are introduced to have a lot of, depth, and they are not just pure character appeal. It makes no sense.
Well, there you go. Now there's a new one with sharp teeth, and even the lolly became a maid, so it can...
A child is not a lolly. Is that very hard to understand or something? A child or children in general are not lollies. They are young people. A lolly is a character which is younger than they appear to be, to the point they look like a child despite having like 400 or 500 years, which the only true lolly here would be Beatrice. Nothing else. So what the fuck is he talking about?
Serve him as well. From the age of 5. You want more? We got more.
She's 14 years old.
Or an attention-seeking witch which is info-dumping at the same time.
When is Echidna info-dumping? Are you retarded? Also, Echidna does not truly love Suru. She only loves getting knowledge and learning more about the world. What Echidna loves is the result of Suru's ability. That's why at the end of Gridiv she says, why does love always fade? In a route in which Suru accepts her contract. Because after Gridiv, she didn't love Subaru. It is as simple as that. She might have had some relationship with Flugel in the past, and that makes her more affective towards Subaru, or feels some kind of connection towards Subaru, but her love, her so-called love, is completely interested. She isn't disinterested in Subaru.
I mean, she is seducing the supposed normal.
Because she's trying to play with his feelings in that case. Like, she doesn't understand. Many times in the novel this is mentioned, and even in the anime, she doesn't really understand others' emotions. She just knows how to comfort them. She knows what to do, but she isn't really understanding the emotions. It would be like a robot maid that is able to calm your child when the child is crying, but the robot maid doesn't really understand the emotions of the child. The same thing happens with Echidna, and all her seducing and all of that was an act, which is why you shouldn't make episodic impressions when you don't have the slightest idea of what will happen in the next episode.
MC, did I mention she's dead? Subaru is so normal, even ghosts want to have sex with him.
Except Echidna doesn't want to have sex with him. The only thing she does in her contract is offer everything she has so that Subaru ends up accepting it, and Echidna eventually gets what she wants. But she's not actually trying to have sex with him. Like, this is completely wrong. And the plot of the witches in general, the witches are incredibly impressed by him because he's a sage candidate, and he's the only one that doesn't go insane next to the witches, which makes him special in that world, but it doesn't change the fact that as a person, in his nature, not in his circumstances, he was a normal and realistic character. And his reactions to things, even if his resolve is incredibly hyperhuman, I would say, are realistic and relatable, and don't undo the fact that from the very beginning he was just a teenager teleported to another world.
Having said that, holy crap, does the author treat women as objects or what? Every time he doesn't know what to do with a waifu, he knocks her unconscious.
When? When does that happen again? The only time it happens is at the beginning of Arc 4 because of the reaction of the pyroxene crystal that Emily is holding. But when does that happen? Like, Season 2, Part 2 completely debunks this shit by the fact that Emilia is actively contributing to the fight, Rem is actively contributing to the fight, and Beatrice is actively contributing to the fight against the Great Rabbit and against, specifically, the Trials and Roswell. So what the fuck is he talking about? And when does this happen prior to this? Like, this only happens at the start due to a reaction to the pyroxene crystal, and Emilia eventually wakes up. The problem here isn't even Emilia being unconscious, but Subaru being teleported after he entered the barrier into the Sanctuary Tomb. So, no, I don't have the slightest idea what this idiot is trying to portray here, but because this practically doesn't ever happen.
So Subaru has to protect them, because that's the closest thing he has to an objective.
Well, saving people is a very relevant objective. Like, saving lives is something that firefighters, policemen, soldiers, doctors, medics, a lot of people do. And they are practically their life objectives. So why the fuck is he trying to devalue trying to save others' lives? And him trying to save Emilia is related to Emilia herself being sheltered most of her life, like outside of the scene, and not really rising up to the conflict because of her personal character flaws. So that is related to her character in general, and that gives her depth. I don't really understand why this is a negative thing here. And well, her getting knocked out in this situation doesn't mean really anything towards her character or towards it has really no implications. Like, I don't know what Snob is trying to mean here.
Sleeping beauties who, like in the fairy tale, they will instantly be all over him the moment they wake up, which is...
Emilia likes him because he literally saved her life like 3 times in the previous arcs, and is the only person who doesn't have any prejudice towards her appearance, and is one of the people that have treated her with affection and with disinterest the moment they met. That's the reason why Emilia wants to protect him. That's the reason why she acts affective towards him. And it makes complete sense that someone who saved your life, you will be trying to protect in return. And what does that have to do with... I couldn't understand at all the comments of her waking up and instantly falling in love with Subaru or something like that, like the Sleeping Beauty who will wake up and love Subaru. Because, 1, Emilia doesn't love Subaru, and, she hasn't learned the concept of love in general as of now. And 2, second thing, Emilia didn't gain her affection after waking up, so she already was affected towards Subaru prior to getting knocked out by the pyroxene crystal. So even his example makes completely no sense. No, none of the argument that he's making makes sense.
exactly what happened with the half-elf waifu. First thing she does...
Again, they're calling any woman waifu. I'm getting tired of this, but I have already addressed it, so let's stop focusing on it.
when she wakes up is yelling, "Subaru is mine, get away from my master!" Remember?
She didn't say that. She didn't at all say Subaru is mine, nor get away from my master. The only thing she said is, don't do anything to Subaru, and she tried to protect him from Garfield, who was a complete stranger that was in the Dragon Carriage. How is that like a sort of unnatural simping reaction to try to protect the life of another person from a complete stranger who is in the same place as the person you're trying to protect and whose intentions you don't have the slightest clue about? How is that a form of simping, or I don't know, like woman falling for him? Like, what the fuck is his point?
And she hated him for treating her like...
Except she didn't hate him at any point in time. It's a complete misreading of what happened in Arc 3.
Like shit, where did that negative repercussion, which can't be fixed...
Which can be fixed by Return by Death, and wasn't fixed by Return by Death, it was fixed by Subaru changing as a person, and that negative repercussion was a result of Subaru constantly trying to self-sacrifice. It was not a result of him like being hated by Emilian or anything like that. Like, what he's saying makes absolutely no sense. And coupled with that fact, the fact that Subaru had to grow as a person to fix that, like in many stories happen, in which two people fight, and in order to reconcile, one of the two has to ask for forgiveness or grow as a person to be able to recognize as a valuable partner by the other person in a relationship. It happens here, and it happens in many other stories, and it is a form of consequences. Just because it is a conflict that is solved doesn't mean that it isn't a consequence or that it didn't happen. Like, Snob's complaints are extremely cherry picky and also double standards, because if he applied it to practically every story in existence, it would mean that any story in which there's romance and there's fights have literally no stakes, because all of that can eventually be fixed by the people that have fought eventually reconciling. So, like, what the fuck is his point?
That's why his otherwise not broken power go to. You can already tell what Rem is going to do as soon as she wakes up. Remember when she butchered him to death in an earlier playthrough? Thank goodness his otherwise not broken power didn't negate that, so he could make her fall in love with him when just a few minutes ago she...
The only thing that returned by death and did, was his death happening and Rem's hatred in those specific loops. Then in the final loop, Rem still was extremely worried of him and potentially hated him due to the fact that he expelled an incredible amount of miasma that reminded her of her past trauma and made her act rash. But in order to be able to save that, to fix those things, Return by Death was not enough. Yet again, in Act 2 we have another if route divergence, which is Wrath If, in which Zoro still has Return by Death, but doesn't save any of the twins because he goes insane, and decides to resend the twins and try to kill Ram, which he doesn't eventually kill, but he does take as a hostage, and well, things go extremely bad. But what Wrath If shows is that Arc 2 isn't just solved by solely returning by death. He also needs to experience a change in character to be able to forgive the twins, and to be able to stop running away from his problems, and that eventually leads to him trying to save Rem, and to him fixing his relationship issue with Rem. And that is a result of Subaru's efforts, not of Return by Death. Again, like, saying that you can restart things is the equivalent of you can fix any problem is completely stupid, because it doesn't necessarily happen. And when Rem eventually wakes up, which happens after Arc 6, she isn't all over him because she doesn't have any of her memories, so she acts as an active detriment, so I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. And by returning by death, he isn't able to fix any of this shit. Rem still acts hostile towards him in Arc 7 and 8. Return by death does not undo this, and Rem eventually gets her memories back by something that isn't Return by Death.
Chopped him into little pieces! And his not broken power didn't negate that, so he could make her fall in love with him when just a few minutes ago she chopped him into little pieces!
In a different loop in which their relationship went completely astray, and she didn't miss him into little pieces. That literally doesn't happen. She did torture him, but the one who killed him in that loop in which the torture happened was Ram, not Rem. It was Ram. And that torture eventually happens because Suru is unable to connect with the twins in that loop because he's constantly preparing to catch the killer, and because of his extremely dense miasma. And eventually the reason why he's able to make and his objective wasn't even to make Rem fall in love with him. The reason why he was able to make Rem stop hating him is, firstly, when he shows humanity to her, when he's crying in Emilia's lap, which shows that the person that Rem initially hated was not a threat, was a complete human being with emotions that was suffering and had to be comforted by Emilia when he was about to break apart. And the other thing that eventually makes Rem fall in love with him is him being able to address her trauma, which didn't happen as a result by Return by Death, but as a result of Suru being able to comprehend her troubles and be able to specifically address her sister complex, in which she believed that her existence was only in which she believed that the objective of her existence was only to act as a replacement of Ram, whose horn she was the reason Ram lost it. And Suru addresses all of those issues, makes her be able to improve as a person, and saves her. And all of those things are as a result of Subaru's efforts. The only thing Return by Death did is give him another chance at it. It didn't make him eventually spawn in that goal out of nowhere without any efforts or without the character potentially suffering any consequences through that path, because consequences could be suffered, as Wrath If shows. So this argument again is completely invalid.
Holy smokes, what happened to normal traveling? Subaru is now teleporting out of nowhere in weird places!
That's the Pyroxene Crystal, which is able to teleport you. That's not Subaru teleporting randomly. And the Pyroxene Crystal is only able to teleport you to specific places in the sanctuary in which the crystal was linked to. Like the tomb, or the other building in which the ReZero crystal is kept, or in the forest near the tomb. Those are the only places the Pyroxene Crystal can teleport you to.
It's like the author doesn't know how to make him go there normally, and he has to use cheap magic.
So magic is used in a story with magic, so it makes no sense. Like 100 IQ. I don't know what else to say. A certain plot element is introduced to explain why Suru is teleporting. Initially, like it should happen in loop stories, he doesn't understand shit of what is happening, and it is eventually explained later, like how the Pyroxene Crystal works. But you're saying that, things are happening out of nowhere because as of now I don't understand what's happening, is completely dishonest regarding a loop stories like ReZero, because you eventually get that information and understand what is happening with each respective loop. So, shut the fuck up.
So whatever shit he has in mind can happen in any way he likes.
It's not whatever shit is happening in his mind when he introduced a plot element that he eventually explains and adds rules to it. So, shut the fuck up. Again, he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Snob is just crying.
Goodness, these powers are not broken, because they would make the MC not to come off as an...
Because they are not broken, the Pyroxene Crystal can only teleport you to specific areas of the Sanctuary, and it has only one use, and he doesn't always have the Pyroxene Crystal with him. So those two things already dismiss what you're saying.
normal person. There is a cliffhanger where he teleports back home, and we are supposed to be curious to see what he's going to do there.
Stop trying to assign random normative propositions to the story, like saying, we are supposed to feel X, or we are supposed to feel curious, or we are supposed to feel grief. You are not supposed to feel anything in particular, because the story cannot force any feelings towards you, nor make you feel anything in particular that you don't initially accept to feel. The story only shows you things. What you eventually feel or don't feel is a result of your emotional reaction to the story. But a story by itself, which is an inanimate object, does not have any goals, nor is able to have any intention or intent, cannot force you to feel or try to make you feel anything in particular. If anything, that is a result of you assigning purpose and intent to an inanimate object, which is a reification fallacy. Leaving that aside, when you're saying that people are in general not feeling curious about this, you're making a blanket statement. Just because you personally don't feel curious about what's going to happen, thus doesn't give you the ability to claim that for every single person that is watching the show, or for the people in general. And third of all, your reasoning is completely wrong. The trial is making him have to face the things that he has constantly been pushing aside, like the issue with his parents, or why he hated that world in the first place, what his issue was with his childhood, and why he eventually ended up disliking his parents. All of that, which he pushed aside when he was teleported to the original world, is what the trial is forcing him to face, so it's making the literal opposite of what you're claiming.
Although we are not, we know he hates reality and will do his best to run.
As I said, that he is running away from his real world is what this trial is trying, or well, from his real world wouldn't be the problem. He doesn't have the ability yet to go back to the original world, considering that no people from beyond the Great Waterfall were ever able to return to the original world, so there's no precedent, and second of all, people are constantly dying, so it would be incredibly irresponsible to let them die there, and it would hurt Subaru a lot considering he loves a lot of them. But, I don't remember exactly what I was saying prior to this clarification. But as of now, this trial is forcing him to confront the problems that he tried to leave behind in the original world, like the situation with his parents, and his problems in his childhood that directly explain the attitude that he had in the first season, and many other things that he tried to push aside. So the trial is doing the direct opposite to what Snob is claiming. It is forcing him to stop running away from his issues.
To the magical fantasy land where sleeping beauties and maids and ghosts...
Sleeping beauties just because Emilia was knocked out one time in the start of Arc 4. That's crazy. And mates that love him just because Subaru was able to save her life and address her trauma, and make Ren deeply love him because of the respect she gained for him, equating it with her just loving him out of nowhere, or Subaru doing nothing to earn that love in the first place. That's crazy. Or him having no merit in fixing that and giving it all to Return by Death, when Return by Death doesn't magically fix the situation because he still has to put the effort in to be able to address the traumas of other people and forgive them. So this a complete brain dead take. In general, the video is completely brain dead. It isn't even trying to put an ounce of critical thinking in the arguments that he's making.
Just love him for being normal and with not broke.
They don't love him for his broken powers, because none of them know about his broken powers, and none of them love him because of his capabilities, but because of what he does for them. And them in this case would be only Petra and Rem. Like, that's it. No one else loves him. Like, you could include Satella among these people, but Satella mostly loves Lugal, not Subaru. Subaru might be related to Flugel, or maybe Satella is in some way related to Subaru in the past, but the Subaru he loves is not currently here because he doesn't remember shit about anything if he was teleported in the past, or he straight up isn't the person she met in the past, which is Flugel. That's it.
And powers at all. Can't wait to see more normal interactions where he teleports wherever the plot wants him to be.
People teleport, therefore the plot makes no sense. Well, that's completely crazy. People, you are completely forbidden from using teleport in any of your plots because I don't know, Snob doesn't like it, even if it has certain rules and it has a basis for happening, which is the Pyroxene Crystal in this case. Crazy.
And use his totally not broken powers for
Because it isn't. Just because it can redo stuff doesn't mean it makes him reach victory. He is the one who has to reach victory. The only thing RBD is doing is giving him another chance. And nothing guarantees that he will reach victory or that he won't eventually get tired of it and go through insanity and make a rash decision that brings him to any froze. So,
using more waifus. After, of course,
yeah, all women are waifus, yeah.
slip through all the goddamn boring talking. Stop talking and show us some.
So, the characters are talking, there's exposition, so it is bad. We're not going to explain why the talking is excessive, why it is redundant, or why it is bad. We're just going to be saying there's a lot of talking, so it is bad. Like, insane logic. Seriously.
And waifus regarding an average otaku like you and me, who hates the real world.
You're not an otaku, you're just a jobless 14-year-old man. And, well, you might hate the real world, but you are nowhere... You have literally no connection to what Subaru is. And they love him not because of his capabilities, again, not because he's above average in their eyes, due to him being able to solve any conflicts at once, but due to the things that he does for them. Because otherwise their love would be completely interested, and it is not. And it, again, not a lot of people that love him.
And wants to escape to a fantasy land that has video game save slots.
Yeah, he wants to escape to a fantasy land that isn't a fantasy in the first place, because it forces him to go through absolute hell, and his friends and the people who he loves to go through absolute hell. So it isn't a fantasy, in this case, as in you want to be there. So, yet again, saying wrong shit. And no, the checkpoints stuff, I already explained this in the documents that I'm going to be linking below, but the video game save point stuff is complete nonsense, when the whole purpose of the mechanic being introduced was based on Tappei wanting to do something similar to what happens in visual novels and alternative routes within visual novels, not video games. So
relatable, and that's what ReZero is all about.
yes, his struggles are relatable, his emotions are relatable, his psychology in general is relatable and realistic, and was analyzed by a psychologist who certified this. Like, he's not making any points.
Fantastic story.
And here it is, that dreaded episode where Subaru supposed real.
Okay, so he's going to make the retarded argument that these are not his real parents, so it has no impact on him. Like, this is so fucking stupid. Them not being his real parents doesn't mean that this trial is not giving him the chance to be able to say goodbye and to address the problems that he tried to run away prior to this trial being introduced. Even if those are not his real parents, they give him the chance to be able to say goodbye. They give him the chance to be able to reflect on what happened in the original world and to recognize the struggles that he underwent there, and also to be able to understand how he grew from that original starting point, because that is what he does when he remembers Rem and Emilia, which are the people who he loves, and makes him remember how all of his troubles in the past afflicted him, and how the existence of those two people who he loves were able to make him push through those issues and be able to overcome them. And also because Kenichi and Naoko, which are her parents, are an accurate reflection of the real thing due to the fact that Echidna is using her Tome of Wisdom, and also Subaru's memories to be able to reconstruct them perfectly. So even if they are not his real parents, this trial gives him the chance to say goodbye. Even if that goodbye is not being received by his real parents, it gives him the chance to at least gain a peace of mind, in this case, to be able to confront a problem that he was constantly trying to push away, and is making him able to recognize the value that his parents hold in his life, even though he currently cannot go back to his original world, nor shouldn't, because people are actively dying around him. So this whole argument about they're fake, so it doesn't matter, is a completely stupid talking point. And how is Subaru's mama a MILF? Like, this is complete slander. He isn't even trying to use a single ounce of logic.
Is not special, and this is what supposed makes the show a subversion of isekai. I already saw videos of people deriding the supposed depth of this pretentious power fantasy.
Power fantasy, because obviously everyone wants to be in that situation, and it is a fantasy they want to escape to, and especially because Subaru is completely powerful, and again, complete nonsense. Like, this is complete slander due to the fact that Snob isn't even trying to explain his points. He's just saying, this is a power fantasy. I won't explain why, and I won't explain why every single thing in the story completely contradicts this idea, because first of all, almost no one would like to be in that situation. It is not an active escapism, because it forces the protagonist to confront his problems and makes him go to insane suffering that no one would be able to resist, were they not Subaru, who has an insane inability to give up, which is the only thing that is not average about him from the start. And Also, we're going to say that that it is a power fantasy because obviously he's not powerless like for half of the story, despite the fact that the issue that he faced completely overpowered him 90% of the time, and the only way he's able to solve them is through depending on those around him, because by himself he's not strong enough to be able to deal with all of that. Well, sorry for yapping, but I am completely tired of these idiots slandering things, especially this episode, which is one of the best episodes of all anime in existence.
I am not going to clip them because I am bored and you know what they will say anyways.
No, but you're not going to clip them because you cannot counter-argue to what they are saying. That's the reason why you're not going to clip them. And in the first place, when he clips people and starts putting those lame titles below that says blah 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 blah, like trying to contradict what they are saying, at the end of the day, there's literally no contradiction that you're showing, and it all shows that you're trying to do insane mental gymnastics to try to paint them bad.
All you need to know is that they are full of bullshit as always.
Like you? Sorry, you're not qualified to call out anyone for being full of bullshit. You are a pile of bullshit in this case. So,
Got 5 things that prove why this episode is nothing special, and on top of that, why it is more of the same bullshit. Number 1. This is far from the first time Subaru realizes he's not special.
the purpose of this episode is not for him to realize he's not special. Where did you take this from? This episode is about Subaru confronting the problems that he constantly tried to push away, him realizing that he does not need to be as his parents and does not need to impose on himself such harsh standards as he was in the past, and him realizing that he doesn't need to be like Kenichi in particular, who was liked by everyone, was practically a perfect father, was popular in the town, and who people constantly compared him to. Then Naoko addresses his particular hatred towards the original world, and also explains to him why it is okay for him to be himself and not try to be like his parents. Like, nothing about this episode is particularly about Subaru realizing he's not special. If anything, it is the opposite. He realizes he's special due to the existence of Rem and Emilia. Because those two people are the people who made him go through things that he wouldn't be able to survive in the first place. People who motivate him and who give him love and affection that he wouldn't otherwise receive. So again, complete headcanon here.
Well, it happens every few episodes when things don't go his way, and he ends
Examples? None.
up crying on the lap of a wife.
Didn't happen here. And you keeping to disrespect the lap moment in Arc 2 is just straight up not paying attention to the anime. It was not just Emilia giving a lap to him. He was stressing to the point of vomiting in the sink by trying to push himself incredibly hard to seem likable to anyone in the mansion, trying to push himself to the extent in which his mind was breaking apart, and Puck told this to Emilia. Then Emilia gives him her lap to be able to discharge all of those emotions he tried to hide from anyone in the mansion, to be able to fit in and to be liked by them there, so that the same tragedy with Rem wasn't repeated. She gives him a lap to rest on. She comforts him and gives him the ability to release all of his bottled up emotions, and that does a lot for him, because he was actively trying to bottle up his feelings, and that was destroying him. That lap pillow also lasts several hours if you have read the original material. And for all of those reasons, in that particular moment in time, that is a huge thing for Subaru. Not something that can only be reduced by a female giving you her lap, but to Subaru being finally able to stop hiding his weak side to those around him, and being sincere with himself, that he's in pain, that what he's experiencing is destroying him. That he was not able to tell to anyone till Emilia arrived and made him be honest with others and be honest with himself about what was happening. Not to mention, as I said, him being able to release those bottled up emotions. But well, this is a debunk of a specific point that Snob keeps bringing up that makes no sense. It was not just a lap pillow, and the times in which it happens, it doesn't have the same relevance as in that specific situation, nor it has the same job or function as in that specific situation, because it is not a matter of Subaru releasing his feelings, but of him being comforted by the person who he loves and who is affectionate towards him due to the things he has done for her. Like, it deepens their relationship and shows how close they are now, in contrast to the first time in which it was an act that Emilia made without any second interest to help Subaru, who had helped her before and saved her life.
So, saying he just realized it now is a lie, because
Except that doesn't happen, because you made the presumption that this is something about him being special.
constantly
him realizing that he's not special. Sorry.
As before forgetting it and going back to thinking he's special for another 3 episodes.
Yeah, he's untalented, but he already figured out that he was not special like from the very beginning because he had a lot of self-hatred. Like Arc 3, Season 1, Episode 18. I'm used to calling the arcs by the respective number because I am a novel reader. Already shows that he believes he's not special by all of the self-hatred that he shows to Rem. So.
Rinse and repeat. Number 2. The scenes with his parents had no build-up. This is the first time...
They had no build-up exactly because of what? Because all of his attitudes right here directly parallel what he was doing in the previous episodes. In Arc 2, he was constantly trying to fix everything by himself, try to not seem weak in front of others, and try to play clown so that others liked him. That is directly what happens in his childhood. Him running away from his problems is also shown here by him constantly trying to not go to school. And he finally decides to confront his problems when he decides that he will go to school. So how the fuck is this not related to what happened in the previous episodes? His parents weren't introduced prior to this, but that was a direct consequence of him constantly trying to run from the things that happened in his original world. In the novel, first of all, he mentions them, and second of all, it is mentioned he doesn't try to think about them precisely because of that. So, and also, a character not being introduced prior to that character being introduced doesn't mean it is badly written, you absolute idiot. There's a moment in which you introduce characters. This is a moment in which Subaru's parents are introduced. Just because they are introduced now and weren't introduced before, doesn't mean it is badly written and says nothing about the quality of the writing.
We see them and therefore there is little gravity behind what is going on.
How is there little gravity when we have no idea about what made Subaru act the way it did? And we had no idea about how Subaru's relationship with his parents was. Nor what made him hate the original world. How does this have no build-up when all of his actions in the first seasons stem from what is shown in this trial?
If they were introduced in the beginning of the story...
Which would ruin this moment, because this moment he has with his parents happens because of Rem and Amelia being able to motivate him and made him understand that he has a reason to keep moving forward and face his conflicts. It won't happen in the beginning because Rem and Amelia are people he hadn't met yet. And also it fits this arc thematically because it is about confronting your past. So it would make this arc redundant. Because this arc is specifically about confronting your own past. So it would make sense to ruin it by introducing Subaru's past since the very beginning. And not introducing it in the very beginning doesn't mean it makes no sense to introduce it later. Like, you're not making any arguments as to why it is worse to introduce it now when it thematically fits. It makes sense. It explains all his attitudes. And also it makes sense regarding the plot structure and why he's there at that precise moment in time. And you're just saying, nah, it's better that it was introduced in the start of the story. Complete nonsense.
And half of what is going on was established back then, or during a few flashbacks, then there would be an actual reason to care about them and their...
But the episode itself gives you a reason to care about them, because they are introduced in that specific episode. Their relationship with Subaru is shown in that episode. How that impacts Subaru and how that is related to him trying to skip classes and not going to school is explained in that episode. All of the things that didn't happen before happen there. So you have no right to complain about this episode ruining the build-up of being ruined by the lack of build-up, because all of those things that you are saying are absent are present in the episode.
With Subaru. Instead of that, we had 28 episodes of a protagonist who doesn't have a backdrop, or...
He does have a backstory, that it isn't introduced in that specific season, and that it is introduced in a season that it's thematically about fighting your past or confronting your past, does not make it badly written.
Established motivations that don't go beyond chasing after...
No, these motivations about him saving people were something he had prior to all of this happening. This is intrinsic to his character, being altruistic and being unable to give up on others. It is not directly related to what happens here. It is about his nature as a character.
Waifus. Number 3.
Yeah, he saves people from dying, so he's just chasing waifus. Yeah, incredible logic.
Even if some of you can magically accept stuff that should have been established in the very beginning.
It has no reason to be established in the beginning because it would ruin the thematic of this arc. As simple as that. And not only that, it would be completely out of context due to the fact that we haven't seen any of those attitudes presented in that arc impact Subaru's decisions throughout the story, because that is the beginning of the story. In this case, we see Subaru's problems and how his childhood was and his relationship with his parents was, which explain what had been happening in the previous seasons. So that doesn't happen if you add it in the beginning, and it ruins the arc thematically. So no, They shouldn't have been introduced in the beginning.
As amazing characterization after 28 episodes of not being there, it won't change.
Which they receive amazing characterization in that single episode, which doesn't mean that just because they weren't built up prior to that, which they were, they have no significant character development. Like, this is completely stupid. It doesn't happen before, so there's no character development. Insane.
The fact that his parents are not real. He didn't actually
I already responded to this.
return to his world, and he isn't actually interacting with them. It's all an illusion made by...
Change anything. This is a complete non sequitur. He isn't addressing anything. He's just saying it is not real, so the impact it has on Subaru is not real. No,
A witch. It's fake. Hot air. Doesn't matter.
it is not hot air because it is made by his experiences and the witch's tome of knowledge. So it is like the most perfect simulation you could have of what would happen eventually in real life.
We are literally watching a show where the power fantasy is
Again, no power fantasy. You have never justified your claims about it being a power fantasy.
real and the real world is fake. That's messed up.
The real world is not fake. The trial itself is showing memories that are related to things that he actually experienced. Just because the trial is not the real world doesn't mean that the real world is fake. And you are making no point about trying to paint something in a certain light by trying to decontextualize it or putting labels on it, because you're not addressing anything in particular.
Number 4. The illusion was created by a witch
Pure playing words.
that was only introduced now, just like Subaru.
Well, does he have a problem with characters not being introduced in the very beginning of the story? Does he really think every single character in the story should have been introduced in the beginning? Are you retarded or something? Legend of the Galactic Heroes, which is a series that you constantly glaze, has like 80% of his cast absent in the beginning and not introduced in the beginning. Like, for example, if I said Mittermeier isn't introduced in the first episode, therefore there's no build-up for his character, therefore it is badly written. Would it make sense? No, this is complete nonsense. This is a completely arbitrary standard that you're trying to impose on the story.
Subaru's parents. There is no gravity behind whatever she does because there is...
Again, there's no gravity, and you're not explaining why, besides saying she didn't appear in the beginning, so she has no gravity. You are completely retarded. No character, therefore, has any gravity in Legend of the Galactic Heroes that was not introduced in the beginning. No flashback, no people that were not introduced in the beginning have any weight. You realize how stupid this is?
No build up to her as a character. She didn't even establish how she's doing all that shit when she's dead.
Well, she is, but you are not receiving the specific details because she's going more into depth about it after the trial is completed, saying that she recreated it from his own experiences, and also explaining later that she uses the Tome of Wisdom. Doesn't mean that it doesn't get explained. Also, what is this idiocy about things having to be explained prior to them happening? That is completely false, especially in a story about loops, in which things are explained and have to be explained after they happen, not prior to it. Otherwise, there's no exploration happening in the first place. Everything is given, and then things happen. And that simply completely destroys the purpose of loops happening in the story. So, what the fuck is your point here? Like, he's saying that a narrative element that he's explaining things after they happen is completely invalid, which isn't valid in this case because the trial that is happening is shown by Kina to be able to... to be reconstructed from Subaru's own memories and experiences. So, no.
Or why she's doing them when there is nothing to gain.
Because that's how the trials work. The trials to free the sanctuary, which are 3 trials in total, of which you have no idea because you're making episodic impressions without having the full context of the story, are trials that are forcing the people that are having to confront them to face their past, face their present, and face their future. And Ekinda makes those trials because she is interested about the reactions of characters, their potential, and the growth, because she's the witch that craves knowledge, which is why it thematically fits, and it fits in the plot for her to put those trials for a person to be able to free the sanctuary. That is the way she designed it, and she probably knew about Subaru going to the trials because Ekinda is basically involved in the entirety of the story, down to Roswell and to many of the conflicts that are actively happening. And well, considering all of that Ekinda is related to many things, and to the fact that the trials being there makes sense, and also Subaru entered the trial chamber, so it makes sense that his trial would start as soon as he enters the trial chamber. All of it makes sense. You're just judging it by episodic impressions because you are not stopping to watch the whole anime and then analyze the things in context because you are not interested about that. You just want to slander the anime. And well, that's basically what you're doing.
Basically, she's dead and does a shit for no reason. Just...
No, I have already explained why. And that person that you see in the sanctuary has been dead a long time ago, and it's an alternate version. It's a separate version of the original thing.
The creativity of modern anime. This is not good writing, so why...
You are not explaining what it is not good writing, you're just saying it is not.
You're pretending like it is. And number 5, what the fudge do you think is going to happen next? You honestly think Subaru is going to return to the real world and make friends?
Why should he return to the original world if we are not even in the first third of the story, you absolute idiot? There's a lot of unresolved matters in the separate world. There are people who he has to save, and there's a conflict going on. This is just about Subaru confronting the things that he tried to push away in the first arcs. It doesn't mean that he has to return to his original world, because there's things that still need to be done in the Isekai world. It wouldn't make any sense for Subaru to return to his original world when we're just 4 arcs in on a 12 arc story, being the first 2 arcs just completely introductory, and arc 3 being one of the shortest long arcs that we have in the story. So, what the fuck is he saying? He doesn't return immediately after it happens, so it is bad writing. What is even the logic that he's trying to make here? The purpose of the trials are for him to confront his past, and for him to come to terms with it. Not for him to necessarily go back to the original world, which isn't the same as coming to terms with his situation, because he would leave all the people he loves and who he used as an explanation for why he can keep moving on in this Isekai world to Kenichi. It wouldn't fix things to just leave them and die. And leave them in the world to die, and to not fix any problems, and to just completely ignore whatever is happening in the original world and in the Isekai world, and try to go back to his original world. He still has stuff to solve, and those people who he wants to save and who he cherishes. So no, what the fuck are you saying?
No, he's going back to chasing after waifus and this
He's back to saving people from dying, especially those who have pulled him through so much shit that he wants to save them, and who he loves. He's not trying to pursue waifus. Those are people who he loves. Those are people who he wants to save. Those are his friends. Every single person who he saves is important to him. He's not just doing simping because he wants to save their lives and stop them from dying. That's not the definition of simping, trying to save another person's lives because they are important for you. Is saving the life of your lover or saving the life of your mother in detriment of being with other people that you care about simping? What the fuck is this logic?
power fantasy for Honorary Otaku.
Still not saying how it is a power fantasy, and it makes no sense to call it one.
Which was the case since the very beginning. What value is there in his realization
Still not explaining why it was the case.
when nothing is going to change? That's the hypocrisy.
Except it changed. Subaru himself came to terms with his past. And him not going back to his original world doesn't mean that he is in the same situation as he was before. Because before, he kept ignoring his past and didn't come to terms with it. He didn't consider what happened in his original world, why his parents did the things they did for him, and why he hated them, and why, well, he didn't really hate them, he disliked them, and why he tried to constantly escape from them. Those things, from his original world, those things are all things that he's forced to address in that arc. And he doesn't have to go back to his original world just for them to be true. Not to mention that he still has stuff to do in the Isekai world, so he cannot return to his original world. And that was not the point of his trial, to make him understand that he has to go to the original world, because that was not the point. As of now, he cannot return, and he must not return because he has stuff to do and people are dying. What he has to do is be able to come to terms with his past and stop ignoring it. Just that.
Of ReZero that so many are defending. It's escapism fantasy that...
Escapism in which... to a world into which no one would like to be in. That's insane. That's insane. It is escapism when literally every single part of it is forcing you to confront your own flaws, your past, and the things that you are ignoring. Insane. Escapism when it forces you to go through insane suffering to save the ones you love and to save yourself. Escapism when the only thing that you are given is an ability that activates by you destroying your own value, healing yourself or dying. Escapism, yeah. And I'm talking about your own, not your value as in an extrinsic concept, but your valuation of yourself, like your valuation of your own life and stuff.
Tends to be a subversion. When down to it, it's only fooling around with a down-to-death premise without...
You are not explaining why the premise is dumbed down. You are not explaining why it is falling around. You are not explaining anything. You're just slandering.
Actually changing anything. It's the...
Except he is changing things by coming to terms with his past. He's changing things by changing as a character. He's changing things by saving people. He's changing things by involving himself in every major conflict. He's changing things by helping people face their issues, just like this past trial is making him face, and many other things. Things are changing, yeah.
Time Subaru realizes he's not special. He's a
Not about realizing that he's not special.
Whose development came out of nowhere.
You are not explaining how his development came out of nowhere, especially when everything we see on the trial was foreshadowed by his attitude in the previous arcs.
Characters that were just established through...
they were not just established. There's a plot reason for him actively trying to ignore his parents, and he mentioned them in Arc 1 and Arc 2, in the novels particularly.
Magic that works however it suits the plot.
It doesn't work however it suits the plot. And if anything, everything in stories, by that reasoning, if you take it literally, works to fit the plot. Because the authors write things in ways to make them work as they want to fit the specific plot they want to write. So, hallelujah, you have just realized that every story is badly written, you absolute idiot. And no, if you consider it to be a plot convenience, which is a different thing, it isn't, because by that reasoning, anything that isn't explained the moment it is introduced or prior to it is a plot convenience, when there's reasons for it being introduced and working the way they work. And they are restricted to things that are reasonable in that world, so it is not a plot convenience.
And through illusions instead of real life.
Yeah, I can already answer this point.
Version of Isekai, my ass. That's why welcome to...
You're not explaining why it is not a subversion, considering that all of these things that I have just mentioned barely happen in any other isekai, that barely ever makes the main character confront their own past, their own flaws, and makes other characters do so in the same way. So just keep making stuff up.
NHK was, is, and forever will be the actual king of anti-escapism. ReZero is garbage.
Which it is, and no other anime makes you confront your flaws, your past, and your issues as much as ReZero does, especially because Return by Death exists so that the protagonist does that. So shut the fuck up again.
Pretentious of a thinker is who
Not saying how people are being pretentious by realizing pure facts about the story.
think light novels are more than toilet paper.
Like novels are not. Is he making a generalization about all light novels being bad? Are you retarded? You haven't read a single light novel in your life. Shut up.
Fantastic story.
So Subaru goes back to the mansion. Why? For the same reason he does everything. To check out his waifus. What?
Because there are people that could potentially die if he's not there. Are you retarded? Is him trying to save the lives of others checking his waifus? Are you stupid? Or are you being disingenuous in purpose? Because I cannot explain it in any other way. Second of all, the reason why he returns is because he was able to free all the people from the sanctuary. And, all the Arlan villagers that were in the sanctuary by negotiating with Garfield. When he returns, he goes to check the dimension, how things are going, like he would do even if he didn't think Ren was in any danger. And also because things were extremely irky in that situation. The door was left open, all of the doors were open, so something definitely was going on. And stop calling women waifus, again.
You thought he has anything else to do in the show?
To save people, yeah, improving himself, growing as a person, like a lot of things he does aside from saving people. And saving people is one of the mechanisms by which he saves himself, because all of those people are the people that make him be able to continue moving forward and to grow as a person.
Just going from one waifu to another.
Yes, he's saving people's lives, so he's going from one waifu to another. Man. Yeah. You must have. In this case, I'm not saying you should have. You must have negative IQ. Slop.
At that point, he dies for the millionth time, and the retarded...
Millionth time. Yeah. Like, I cannot take you seriously. I cannot take anything of what you're saying seriously, aside from very specific criticism that people repeat, and I have to address in this video. But dies for the millionth time. You're so retarded.
audience who likes this shit gets a boner by his suffering for yet another time.
No, his suffering is there for a very specific reason, and the author has already explained why. And also because it forces to confront himself. And to avoid all of these scenarios happening in the first place. That's as simple as that. Never in the story does use such shock value. Never. And the author over explains why he tried to implement all of these things in the story in the first place. Over explained it in the document that I will leave in the description, which has all my response to his previous video, in which he already mentions this.
Which is the only reason they like the show, because all the rest is just
making a baseless assertion, generalization, and proving nothing, as always.
talking and talking and talking.
People talk, so it is bad. We're not going to explain how that dialogue is unnecessary, redundant, or bad. We're just going to say there's dialogue, so it's bad.
Completely forgettable stuff nobody cares about.
That's what you should prove, but you aren't doing so.
As they wait impatiently for the next time Subaru is going to die horribly.
Except that they wouldn't even watch the series if they just wanted to see Subaru die. They would just see the moments in which he dies, and that's it. Wouldn't care about the parts in which he doesn't die too, like second part of second season or Arc 5.
And then that time finally comes and everybody wakes up because there is fake tension once again.
There's no such thing as fake tension. Tension is already fake in every single story, but the fact that no significant consequence is happening because all of it is made up. But even leaving that aside, ignoring that, no, there's tension in ReZero. I already explained this. You're not explaining how all of those moments in between stories that are irrelevant or people do not care about when they are constantly talking about the development of the characters. That doesn't happen necessarily by Subaru dying. The interactions between characters. the information that is given in those specific moments. A lot of things that relate to the dialogue that is not directly connected to people dying. So just shut the fuck up. You're making a generalization about things that you don't know and you have no way of confirming. So don't even make those claims.
And instead of boring talking, and I say fake because there are no consequences.
Again, respond to this point, this is false.
No matter how many times someone gets brutally murdered, he will be fine when time resets.
Not necessarily. Again, there's a case in Arc 8, there's a case in Arc 4, and the fact that Subaru, as of that point in time, only lost Rem to checkpoint fuckery doesn't mean that checkpoint fuckery cannot happen. If anything, again, stakes are the potential for things happening. That happening to Rem shows Subaru that he should take more care about how to use his checkpoints and about the fact that it can potentially lead to someone being lost permanently. So, considering this, it is in part considering that stakes are not magically removed just because that specific event didn't happen prior or didn't happen many times, because stakes are the possibility of things happening, and that specific events introduce that possibility happening. Second of all, people are dying, and Subaru does not return to save them, like it happens with every single person in Arc 5. Well, not every single person, but the majority of people that were living in Priscilla died. Subaru could not save all of them in that situation. Then a certain person in Arc 8, then Rem in Arc 4, which almost leads to him permanently dying or permanently losing his mind in Arc 6 and Arc 4, and many other ways in which consequences can be experienced. The consequences are also affecting Subaru's mind and psychology, making him take irrational decisions, making him take a lot of stress that makes him do things that do not help his case or make him go mad, and in general affecting his ability to fix things in the posterior loop. So no, and lose himself also, because if you want to see Subaru using RVD, you have Gridiff, in which he turns completely crazy. So yet again, he's completely wrong, making shit up and not justifying his points. So
There is no permadeath, and anyone who's...
there is, and no permanent death as of the 4 arcs that you are seeing happening does not mean that there's no stakes, because stakes are the possibility of things being lost, not things being lost. The protagonist never dies in many stories. That doesn't mean there are no stakes, because the stakes refer to the possibility of something being lost, not to things actually being lost. In Legend of the Galactic Heroes, you have Yang and Reinhardt that don't die in the entirety of the series, and well, again, you should say that there are no stakes, but you aren't saying that.
As there is, he's a complete retard.
Rem is now technically
Consequences. No matter how many times someone gets brutally murdered, he will be fine when time resets.
I already responded to this, but I wanted to say who he was calling retards.
There is no permadeath, and anyone who says there is a complete retard.
Rem
A perfect reasoning. There's no permanent because I say so, and anyone who opposes my reasoning is a retard. Yeah, very intellectually honest.
now technically permanently gone for the time being, and she can't, from what we know, come back for now.
There is a part where he doesn't die immediately because he gets saved, and they try to make it seem like, oh shit, he didn't die.
That's not the purpose why he was saved. He was saved because he was trying to engage in something incredibly toxic and that destroys himself, which is trying to kill himself as soon as something bad happens, which is not a healthy attitude, and which is something that he does at the start of Arc 4. It shows how he has stopped valuing his own life, and how he has considered it a mere mechanism by which he can save people that has no value by itself. That is literally the purpose of Beatrice trying to heal him, and also relates to Beatrice as a person wanting to die herself due to her situation being shut in that library for 400 years, and hence being unable to tolerate Subaru dying in front of her. It has nothing to do with the story trying to portray or show Subaru's checkpoint changing and people dying. It is trying to show how Subaru, because of what happened with the Rem, is desperately trying to stop that from happening again by killing himself over and over again, in turn diminishing the value of his own life and engaging in self-destructive thought. That is the purpose of that scene. So you completely misread it.
Away, which means the save point will change and everybody will remember.
That's not the purpose of this scene in particular. If anything, if you want to search for a specific scene that shows this, you have Subaru being kidnapped, and he's saved by Otto. That's not something that he could have undone by himself, and it shows the necessity of him relying on other people. Otherwise, he will lose them. and lose himself.
Dead, which is obviously a lie because he gets killed anyways. A few minutes late.
No, because what lie? You assume that the story was telling something that something was never told, and now you accuse the story of lying to you. You are so retarded. And in this case, we are not referring to him being unable to lose people by checkpoint fuckery. We are referring to the story trying to say Subaru will be healed, a checkpoint will be established, and people will be lost. No, in this specific situation, that's not what is trying to be shown. If anything, it is shown how Subaru is fearful of that specific circumstance and tries to kill himself as soon as he can after something bad happens, because he has lost any he has stopped considering any sort of value in his own life. It is meant to show how self-destructive he has become.
And time resets as normal. What a pile of shit, trying to fool you into thinking his power is not fixing every problem.
Because his power by itself cannot fix every problem. It is Subaru himself that fixes them. The power only gives you the ability to retry, not magically undo the problems that you're facing. And the problems of Arc 4 would be almost unbeatable if it wasn't for a separate character that isn't Subaru, which is Otto here.
What kind of a retard would fall for that?
He's pressed for time. Yes.
People who don't like the same as me and do not agree to my retarded arguments are wrong. That's basically Snob's argument. So stupid.
To be moving, he has to go, and he knows now that return by death doesn't necessarily help him.
So Subaru resets as always and tries to find a different way for defeating the slutty assassin, because for some reason he forgot he can insta-kill anyone he likes.
Not how the ability works. Tappei already refuted this. Return by death has only been shown to be able to insta-kill someone. Sorry, the taboo of return by death has been shown to be able to insta-kill someone only in that circumstance with Emilia, because Emilia was valuable for Subaru. So the witch punished him by killing Emilia. It would not be a punishment for the witch to kill Elsa in this case. So no.
By telling him he has returned by death. So much for learning
Doesn't work that way. The author already confirmed it doesn't work that way.
from his mistakes. What amazing character development. Forgetting
Doesn't have anything to do with character development. Your criticism in particular that isn't even valid.
his own progress. Not to mention
You're not explaining how he forgot his progress.
his emotional development. Remember how much he was freaking out every time he went back?
Because he is still freaking out. In that specific scene, you have him trying to kill himself desperately after people were lost. Do you think that's not him losing his mind? Do you think that's not bad? And also, him being okay with dying is being insane in a way. Like him being nonchalant about dying, which is what starts happening. Well, not nonchalant, he is losing himself. But him being okay with the idea of dying is insanity by itself. Is him losing himself. Look at fucking ReZero, you idiots. So, like the story is showing you how he's destroying himself by doing what he does, and he says, well, he's not giving a fuck about things, and he has suddenly become immune to return by death. No, you cannot become immune to return by death. Look at how that went in ReZero, as I said like a million times. Like, shut up.
Time. Well, fuck that. After a million times, now he doesn't.
And that is false. In the time in which he's about to die from Elsa, and prior to that he tried to kill himself. That clearly shows that he's emotionally unstable. Then when he dies from Satla, he cries in Emilia's lap. In Emilia's lap, no, but he cries next to Emilia after waking up. So he's clearly affected by it. Then the right death turns him completely insane, and he would have permanently gone insane if Ekina wouldn't have helped him in that situation. And like, he never goes unscathed from any of his deaths. I don't know what the fuck you were talking about. If anything, every single consecutive death is making him value his life less and being more self-destructive. So it's pushing him through the wrong path here. Every single death, every single posterior death from the previous one. So he's clearly being affected by all of it. And him being nonchalant about the suffering of other people, which is what Otto mentions it, because he believes he can undo it, is the problem here, that he's becoming emotionally detached. That is another negative repercussion that abuse of return by death has. And Otto points it out, even if he doesn't know about return by death. So shut the fuck up. There's things impacting Zoro that is making him take decisions that he wouldn't take otherwise. And you then complained in the first season that he was incompetent because he was making incorrect decisions, or he was taking rash decisions. That's a result of the effect of using return by death. Him becoming emotional, or him becoming detached, and that directly impacting the way he acts and his evaluation of his own life and self-destructive tendencies. So,
feel a thing. Look at him acting like his usual happy self.
and that's also a facet that he's trying to portray in front of others, because he's trying to play strong, to pretend to be strong in front of others, and that's something that Otto points out in the second part of the second season. Like, the second part of the second season starts with, stop trying to pretend to be strong in front of others. This is a complete facet by Subaru trying to hide his suffering, trying to hide what he's experiencing from others, trying to carry all that burden alone, which destroys him and makes him more self-destructive.
Moments after he was brutally gutted to death, then he gets tied up and
yeah, that if anything shows that he's not sane as of now.
Abandoned in a dungeon for 3 days in a row. 3 days, all alone and tied up in a dungeon. That would be enough to drive anyone mad. How does he behave when he's...
That he went mad to the point of starting hating Garfield, but when he's released by someone that is Otto, and who is his savior, obviously he wants he gains an enormous amount of respect and affection towards Otto because he saved him from that situation. He has experienced way worse than being just tied up for 3 days. So
Finally free by laughing and not holding a grudge towards his captor.
Otto was not his captor. What the fuck is he talking about? No, I cannot take this seriously. What the fuck are you saying? Otto was not his captor. That was Garfield. He's no relation to what happened to Subaru. What the hell are you talking about?
Who for some reason is now gay tsundere for him. Holy shit, what the...
He's no. What the fuck is he saying? Oh my god, I seriously can't. Otto is not gay tsundere or anything like that. Otto was saved by Subaru's intervention, so he deeply respects him. He also respects Emilia and values Subaru because of his interactions throughout the arc. So he cares about him, he considers him his friend, and he had barely any friends throughout his life. And we're talking both about Otto and Subaru. So this is why it is a heartfelt moment, because both of them are extremely awkward when it comes to friendships. And again, Otto is not his captor, and not a gay tsundere. What the fuck are you talking about?
Well, shift is that from torture porn tragedy to gay tsundere.
What torture porn? Again, torture porn is a very, very lazy label that mediocre critics like Snob can just spam whenever they don't want to do the heavy lifting of actually explaining their points. What about it is torture porn, you absolute idiot? Torture porn would imply that the plot is being broken just to make a character suffer more or less. In no way is the plot being broken, and in no way is the suffering that Subaru experiences just for the purpose of him causing a shock in the audience. No! That's not the purpose. As I've already explained, the author explained clearly why Subaru suffers as much as he does. For the audience to not consider that any of the things that any of the deaths that he's experiencing are okay, or that they can be ignored or taken lightly. That's the purpose of it. Well, it's better explained in the document that I will leave in the description.
The comedy in an instant. What amazing character development.
And obviously there was not a brutal change in tone or a drastic change in tone. Tone changed. That doesn't mean that the change in tone was drastic, because we didn't go immediately from him suffering or being tortured or something like that to immediately being fine or making jokes with another person. First he's rescued, then he's thankful, then he's affective, and then jokes start. So we have a gradual change in tone. You cannot criticize this as if it was a drastic change in tone, because it is not. And just because suffering exists in a story does not mean that any heartful moments, which are not comedic in this particular instance, because it is trying to show affection and connection between Subaru and Otto, who Subaru saved in the past, and that's the purpose of that scene, not purely comedic relief nor anything like that. And it's showing a good friendship between both of them. So again, not only misreading the scene, but also attributing an incorrect purpose to it.
Change his personality in a single second.
Didn't change his personality at all. In which way does it show a personality change? The fuck is he talking about?
Meanwhile, the rest of the world proves what a normal, average, and definitely not overpowered main character he is by calling him some and by being unable to exist without him, so they don't stop looking for him. Yeah, and definitely not overpowered porn tragedy to get tsundere comedy in an instant. And definitely not overpowered main character he is by calling him some and by being unable to exist without him, so they don't stop looking for him. Yeah, completely normal.
What? So he's saying people are looking for him. Therefore, what? The story is badly written because people are looking for him? Considering that he's related to... He's the second most important person in his camp? Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
And now, and definitely not overpowered main character he is by calling him some and by being unable to exist without him, so they don't stop looking for him. Yeah, complete...
I really cannot understand Snob's point. This is complete gibberish. Like, let's try to re-listen to it, because...
So they don't stop looking for him. Yeah, completely normal. And
in which way is looking for someone that was lost, saying that they cannot exist without him? What the fuck is this reasoning? Is policeman trying to search for a missing child, them saying that they cannot exist without the missing child? What?
All the painful waiting for the next time he dies horribly with no consequence.
First of all, you cannot say that there will be no consequences, or say that the show has no stakes by virtue of the fact that the possibility was shown that there can be consequences in case of the checkpoint being changed. So you cannot say that there are no consequences. Second of all, there are consequences that directly affect Subaru and make him stray from the path of solving things, make him take rash decisions, irrational decisions, devalue his life, and turning away from good, which is what dying a lot of times has repeatedly been shown to make him do. As in Pride-Eve, Wrath-Eve, and Greed-Eve, 3 instances in which he abuses his ability far more than he ever does at the start of Arc 4, and even at the start of Arc 4 when he starts abusing it directly impacts him and makes him stop valuing his life and engage in self-destructive attitude. But those alternative ifs show that if he keeps dying and dying and dying and dying, he will eventually turn insane, if he does so with such frequency and repetition. So that's also wrong, and in this case his emotional support, which was REM, is not present, and Emilia is actively being pinned down by the trial, so he cannot depend on his friends as emotional support at the very beginning. Emilia does support him a lot of times throughout the arc, but not as much as she could do if she was not afflicted by the trial. And well, all of those circumstances pin him down and make his deaths, if they keep happening on the arc, and if they kept happening, if he accepted Echidna's contract, something that would end up destroying him. So there are consequences. It also, as I said, changes his attitude and has a lot of impact in what he does. And obviously, stakes do not disappear because we have already mentioned all the situations that can happen and render Return by Death useless, or make it not able to completely undo stuff. And just because it eventually does not end up happening in the next 2 deaths or 3 deaths, does not mean that it cannot happen. In the same, by that same argument, by saying that something doesn't end up happening, therefore there are no stakes, I can say that Yang and Reinhardt never die in Legend of the Galactic Heroes, therefore there is no tension. As simple as that. It makes no sense, because stakes are the possibility of loss, not the manifestation of that actual loss. So.
And says begins anew.
There is.
And also, people are not only talking about his deaths, which is another one of Snob's idiotic points. People are talking about his development. People are talking about the lore. People are talking about a lot of details that do not directly involve Subaru's deaths. And you are literally complaining about this in your own video, that people are talking about these things. So.
A lot to tackle and a lot to really just think about. Fantastic story.
So we are going to leave it here for this part being, because I already extended for over 3 hours, and minutes 11 and 28, we're going to keep debunking this video in the next part, but already everything that Snob has said is invalid, so